Welcome to Workplace Weirdness, the non-HR HR podcast where we dive into the strangest office situations and most awkward workplace dramas. I'm your host, Maya Kadar Kovalsky, and I'm a former chief culture officer and head of people. I've seen and heard it all, and from all sides, so truly no judgments. This is a safe space to get real and explore the cringy, confusing, or chaotic side of office life. So grab your coffee, kick back in your swivel chair, and listen up. We've got a lot to get to today. We'll discuss weeping in the workplace, a revolving door of new bosses, and navigating cultural confusion. Plus, can AI help us manage trauma? But first, our friend of Workplace Weirdness today is Omer Golan. Omer is an artist, serial tech entrepreneur, and the founder of MyWhatIf, an organization revolutionizing the treatment of trauma through AI. MyWhatIf's programs are reshaping mental health care and providing life-changing support for veterans and cancer patients. Hello, Omer. We're delighted to have you visit us here at Workplace Weirdness. So how has your week been going?
My week has been fun, intense, and I'm glad it's coming to an end.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you're getting to spend it with us. And let me ask you something. So I know that you work with AI and mental health. So how can AI provide support for mental health?
AI, what many people don't realize, AI is kind of like therapy in the sense that it mirrors back to you everything that you're putting into it, right? So it's really, I think the interesting thing about AI is that it doesn't have the fault or the misgiving of a human therapist. It has infinite memory. It doesn't project itself into the conversation. It doesn't have an opinion or a feeling towards something that you do. It doesn't feel that it needs to, it doesn't feel like it needs to have influence on whatever it is that you're experiencing or feeling. It doesn't have a bad day. He doesn't get up in the morning, had a fight with his wife and coming to the office and have no patience for you. It also doesn't fall asleep when you speak.
Or make its shopping list while you're talking.
Or make it shopping list for us. The interesting thing about AI and mental health, it's available for us. It's accessible. It learns everything. It knows everything. It says it's got a very wide perspective and all of the tool sets that you can possibly want to have for a therapist in that little program. And you can count on it anonymously. And I think that's a huge advantage versus what we have today.
So it can do some things that humans can't do, but does it sort of eliminate the need for a human therapist or?
No, not at all. I think that we all have different things that we respond to, right? And some people, they are doing really great with cognitive behavioral therapy and talk therapy. Some people need to have something more like group therapies. Other people prefer drugs. Right. I think in what we're trying to solve in trauma treatment, people with PTSD, people who experience trauma, very often they don't want to speak to actual people. There's so much guilt and shame involved in that space, in that type of experience. Then our brain work against us a little bit. We feel like we can't really reach out and seek help. And with AI, there's no judgment. There's no need to build trust. You trust it. It's there. It doesn't judge. It offers an ear, so to speak, right? And it helps you rewrite your story in a way that a human could never help you.
It's really fascinating because, there's certain aspects of learning that are sometimes also helped by having something where the person doesn't think that it's a human that can judge them. So for autism, for instance, I know that there's aspects of like utilizing a robot where sometimes, or a computer, where sometimes an autistic child will also feel more compelled to express themselves, essentially, because they feel alike to that thing. And I love this idea of like, because you're removing the judgment aspect or the fact that that's another person there, you're actually giving the people the space to explore themselves and without any guilt, without any shame. Why don't you tell us about how you got into the whole exploration of trauma? I know you have a personal connection to it, so I just wanted to hear.
Yeah, well, multiple points in my life, I think, brought me to this point. When I was 20, I had this incident when someone, I was playing backgammon, that board game, with a friend in the West Bank, when someone surprised me with a hug from behind and detonated 15 pounds of explosives on my back. I died for a little bit, pronounced dead. Someone brought me back, put me on an ambulance. I woke up after a month in a hospital, and I was a terrible, terrible patient. My hope switch was down, which I didn't know at the time. But I couldn't see that things would be good, and I didn't see any point of healing or recovery. It took me many years to kind of rebuild myself and move on with my life, but I always felt held back. I think that's a lot of people with trauma. They experience that. They experience like, what if I never, what if I never died when I was 20? What if I never spent a year in the hospital? I've probably been in such a much better place, right? I've done good to myself, but maybe I've been doing 100 times better if I haven't gone through this experience. So going through this, October 7th hit, I wanted to do something with an impact. What would I solve? I thought, let's put together AI to try and create systematic change in mental health and accelerate trauma treatment. So now, 13 months after that point, we are nearly 200 people in our AA organization. And it's really important for me to mention, this is a non-profit AI foundation. We're a group of exited founders, tech entrepreneurs, the AI scientists, trauma experts, psychiatrists, psychologists, you name it. We're all volunteers. We're all putting our time to give this as a gift for humanity, to show how AI can benefit and serve us and not just exploit us. So this is a entirely 100% free service built on volunteering work, and we're now preparing for clinical trials with Mount Sinai Hospital in New York and Herzog Hospital in Jerusalem. We're trying to provide this solution for the entire world, to be able not just to heal from their trauma and get better, but also to encourage resilience, empathy, and empower people to find their best versions. And I think that we can do that through a scalable and affordable and accessible healthcare from the type that we create.
So I get chills every time. I've heard you tell the story now a couple of times, and I really get chills every time you tell that story. And I think it's interesting that the person going through the trauma thinks, what if it never happened? Because in certain cases, and obviously nobody wants to have the trauma to go through, but I often see examples of people living through trauma and making their lives even more meaningful because of it. So, and I think you're doing that as well. So I know that that's not, I don't know if that's even comforting to hear, but it's just incredible how you can change that. Because I didn't die through going through this trauma, now how do I make my life worthwhile? How do I make it more meaningful? And so I think that, that's a testament to what this product can do, and how people can reframe basically where they are in big ways and in little ways. And I think that's important to say. What's your weirdest workplace moment? In light of everything I've heard, I feel like it's too light of a question right now, but if you do have a workplace moment that you'd like to share, a weird moment, I would love to hear it. I know you've had many companies, so I'm curious to hear.
I had a company called Alternates, where we invented a way to transform storefront windows into smart interactive screens, essentially, that understand what you look like, what you're feeling, what you're wearing, and kind of personalize your experience from there. That was, I think, my second or third tech company. We were based in Chelsea with a fun office, a whole floor on 26th and 6th Ave. We were sitting in the office one day. This landlord that we had came in. He's at the time he was a 76-year-old ex-mobster person. I won't name names. He's a very interesting, very colorful person. So he comes in. All of our employees are in their cubicles, in the little offices around. He sits with me and my wife in our little living room in the center of the office, and he takes a trash bag. And he starts emptying it on our couch. And there comes $250,000 in cash on the couch, falling in $10,000 stacked. And we can hear everyone's ears in all the cubicles around. Everyone, you can see the tension, the air changes in front of your eyes. And he pours the money out. My wife's poured the money back in to the back. She doesn't want that thing to get lost in the couch or having any kind of and
What was he doing? Why was he bringing it to you?
So his idea was that I will be managing my meetings, that I would host my meetings, like I would have my CEO office and have $4 million in cash piled on the table, and just ignore the money and will take meetings and get people to speak to me. I'll just like sit here and have a chill conversation, ignore the fact that there is a refrigerator, size.
I guess that worked in his business, in his industry. It doesn't work in all the industries, though.
And he said, you don't need to sign on anything. We don't need to write anything. I trust you. I know you'll pay me back with interest, and we don't need to talk about it now. Just keep the money and enjoy.
I'm so happy you didn't take it, because I think that would have probably been a mistake. So you made a good call then. And yes, that is.
Just to see all the employees around.
Yeah, right. That definitely goes in the Hall of Fame of weird moments, for sure.
None of us saw that amount of money in our lives in cash in front of us. That was a very strange moment indeed.
I think that's actually a really cool moment as well. And I'm happy you shared that with us. So now we're going to shift to the Week in Work, which is a weekly section where we discuss a news story that could affect how we work. So the journal Nature published an article discussing the effect of implementing AI in the workplace and the importance of building a human-led AI system. So the article finds that the introduction of AI in the workplace can intensify burnout by imposing new job demands, altering job characteristics, and disrupting established work routines. Other findings include AI can mean employers have really high expectations and set unachievable goals for employees, which leads to stress and burnout. And too few studies have examined how AI adoption affects employees' mental health, especially burnout in the workplace. And it also found that greater employee support plus realistic expectations will increase employee confidence and minimize the harmful impacts of AI in the workplace. So the easy way to say this is that essentially, because AI has been increasing the speed of how fast certain things can be turned around, now employers are actually expecting things to be turned around more quickly. And that can increase the burnout and the expectations on employees for how fast they need to get things done. So have you experienced any of this, Omer, or have you heard about cases of more burnout in the office because of AI?
I think that there are so many ways where AI can reduce burnout. It might be counterintuitive. Like, I understand that employees can be overwhelmed by increasing expectations, but if you think about AI as a tool that's there to help you, right? So you can create automations for all your repetitive tasks. Now you're free to focus on meaningful things that are way more important and way more human that that AI cannot provide. I think that the tools like we're building with MyWhatIf can create a monitor and can help you with your well-being in the workspace and deal with some of that stress and even create some early interventions for you to kind of to be able to understand for yourself what is happening in your own brain. And I think in terms of workload balancing and dealing with expectations, if you're using it as a tool to make your work better, it's not going to stress you out, because you're not competing with AI on your work. You're using it to help you be better at your work, right? So I think about AI when I don't want to start with a blank page, right? I want to start there's something to work from. I don't send an email and ask the AI to create the email and just let it fly automatically. But I would start like that. Maybe I would have a draft and I would start working that draft myself. I feel like it creates better efficiency for me as a person, as a manager, as an employee. And I think that people should just consider how this thing can help them in their day-to-day routine versus being stressed out about not being able to compete with AI.
So I'm just going to push back on you just for a little bit, because I understand what you're saying. At this point in time, AI is a tool that, for instance, I bet you and I use it similarly. I use it to basically give me a lot of shortcuts in my life. But I think what we're hearing, and this is interesting, how it's going to play out in the future. But the expectations then of people are that things will get done much faster. In other words, like, let's say I go to a marketing company and I want them to produce a certain amount of ads for me, or copy for ads. All of a sudden now, my expectation might have been a few weeks before. Now it's like 3 days. And if something, to do it right, it actually takes longer. So I actually want to say my response to this is people need to be taught um, how to figure out the borders and the ways to not let managers influence their time. And in other words, they have to be able to manage up. They have to be able to say, listen, I know that you think that this tool helps me and that's great, but I actually need more time because you want it not only to be, good quantity wise, you want it to be good quality wise. And then that's the human touch of needing to go through it and to make sure that it's good. So that's kind of where I understand the idea. For instance, we heard from people who are writers, especially writers. I guess it's coming up a lot for me in my friends who are writers, where their expectation of like how fast to turn over a script, for instance, could have been 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and now they're expected to do it in 3 days because of the use of ChatGPT, for instance. So just putting that out there, that I can see how timelines are speeding up, but I think that it's on us as the humans to say, I get that you want me to use this tool, but this is a tool. It's not, it's not going to give you everything you want.
The workspace is changing, and there are going to be jobs that are going to just change dramatically. Not going to happen in the same way that we're used to. So if you're thinking, yeah, it's augmenting the expectations, it changes, right? There used to be a profession called lamplighters. People would go out. It's 5 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. They would light those gas lamps, those oil lamps. We don't see it. They demonstrated when the World's Fair happened in Chicago the first time and they lit up a street with electricity. They said, oh my God, the expectations, words, everything was going to be different. It is going to be different. So I think people should focus on their soft skills, on what makes them unique and human and better. And as you said, if there is something that I can add as a person to the text, to the copy, to the ad, to whatever it is that I do, that makes it unique, that makes it me, that AI cannot possibly provide, I should really focus on that and highlight that, and explain to my employer that's what makes me shine, that's what makes that content shine, or whatever it is that I'm producing. And I use AI, and this is how I use it in my process. But to really make the big difference between 99% okay to 100%, perfect, this thing requires more human touch, more of me, and that takes time. I have my own process, whatever it is, right? But definitely be prepared. Those changes are happening. They're not going anywhere. They're accelerating. If people are not focused on the present and thinking about how they're adapting with the changes that are happening, they will be left behind. There's no doubt about it.
Let me ask you another question. I think you're absolutely right, and I think that's right. We have to remember our uniqueness and what we bring as humans, and that again, that AI is a tool. So I back you up.
Okay to realize that what, we don't have a competitive advantage in this particular thing that we're doing right now. Maybe we should consider about to pivot and think about. Sometimes I think about even CEOs. They need to think about themselves as a product market fit. What's my product market fit? I'm the product right now. If my product is writing skills and I don't have a competitive advantage, then am I going to take it out to market and see that there's just not a fit? And if there's not a fit, I should pivot and try and do something else. I think people don't like to think about it in this way, but they should look at whether their skill and the market needs align. And if not, they should get new skills. They should find something else that get them to shine and to differentiate themselves in the workplace, in the marketplace. There's no way around it.
And so let me ask you again another question, different direction. Burnout and trauma. Is there a link? Is there something that you need to be more concerned about if you've undergone trauma and and are experiencing burnout?
Burnout definitely leads to trauma. Even if you didn't get blown up in a suicide bombing, unfortunately, I've ran many employees to burnout because I had this first-time CEO, even second-time CEO. I just had unrealistic expectations into what they would do with their time. I thought with my in my silly little way, I thought that I own all of their time once they sign up to work for me, for that startup, and that we will all be aligned in our need to kill ourselves over that company, right? And I had those expectations from someone that wasn't the founder, that wasn't the person with a vision, but just signed up and said, I want to work with you and help you create that vision. I said, great, now you're in. Meaning you need to be here 18 hours a day, and you need to work weekends, and you need to stay here during the holiday dinner, and do whatever it takes to make this thing successful. Um, Once I felt burnout myself, I felt it twice, three times. I realized I can't really ask people to do that. No matter how well they're getting paid, there needs to be some kind of alignment and expectations. And sometimes you feel it's okay if you align expectations, but very often the employee, just to get the job, would say, "Sure, I'm down. I'm going to be here weekends. I'm going to be here nights. I'm going to do whatever it takes." But really, you need to really dig deep inside of you what's really important, and make sure that you don't get people to burn out. Otherwise, you're not going to get to you might win a battle, but you're not going to win the war.
I think it's a very amazing admission from you, and shows growth as a leader that you learned that lesson. In other words, that you took that in. It's very difficult, of course. We see all these shows that show you, like, when Apple, before Apple was Apple, and how the team worked together and they like coded together, I don't know what, in the garage or whatever. So we have these idealized versions of how, sometimes teams, especially young ones, go all out for a product, which is wonderful if it happens. But I do think that, nowadays, especially, employees are balancing a lot of times their home life, because they're usually working from home a lot more, their home life in a much different way, and it's getting into their jobs, and they just have to, we just have to be much more flexible and much more understanding. It doesn't mean, though, that they don't have to be committed. And I love what you said about at least trying to set alignment of expectations at the beginning. So at least if you're expecting them to come in on weekends and work, and answer the phone at 3 a.m, that's at least something that's a conversation before it starts.
We still go in all in on a project and find ourselves working, 5 nights a week and 5 days, but after that you need to have a time for decompression. You can't say, you know what, that major fire that we just put out, it's behind us, but now we're moving back like normal to the rest of the projects. There's always going to be a fire to put out. There's always going to be an urgent submission, application, whatever thing that we need to send out. We need to realize that if we get people to put in their nights, their weekends, their holiday, there need to be some decompression time afterwards that give them back that time that they gave you, right? That overtime that they invested, not because the monetary compensation, just for the emotional one, right? I put in my weekend and I worked through Thanksgiving, I think through all this. Even if I have time after, just give me some time off. Let me, and make it an option. Say, you know what, if you don't want to, you don't have to come in. You did so much already.
Right. And exactly, appreciating when they do come in and they do that extra mile of work. By the way, though, some of my best work experiences are pulling all-nighters to do some sort of project that we ordered in food, we rolled up our sleeves, we had an amazing time. But yes, I would say that the bosses who kept me on longer gave me the next day off. You know what I mean? They understood, like, you put in a really, really good amount of work, and we had a great time doing it at the end of the day.
I have to say, I'm lucky to have been working with my wife, as COO. She's always been so much more of a people's person. I had a big vision, and I was like a tank. I would like move forward at any cost. I would push everyone together and get to our end goal, which is great. You need someone like that mobilize people and make sure that everyone is on target all the time. But she would tell me after an all-nighter, hey, do not expect them to come in at 8 o'clock in the morning tomorrow or at all, right? Give them some time to just decompress and like you again before they need to see you. And I felt that that provides for me, a lot of insights into how we can reduce burnout with our teams and make sure that the team actually like their work and get all those benefits that you mentioned, right? That get them to form a team and to come together. Um, can't do that by just running them down and ignoring the fact that they want or need a life of their own.
So wonderful. Thank you for those insights. I think that's wonderful. And I thank your wife for giving you the perspective that you need, which is important, and being truthful and honest and upfront with you. And I think on that note, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we have questions for you about high emotion when your lead creative checks out and heads to Vegas, and how to grapple with too much change at work when we come back.
Finding the right vet can be rough, but there's a better way. Meet Vetted, the new era of veterinary care. Vetted has reimagined what a vet visit should be, from clinics designed to feel just like home to their personalized, proactive approach. Vetted's care team catches small issues early, preventing bigger problems down the road. And the convenience, unbeatable. Located within pet boarding centers, they make vet care easy and stress-free for pets and their humans. Vetted is in New York City, Chicago, Dallas, and Boston, with more cities to come. Plus, their app provides expert advice wherever you are. Vetted makes vet care simple, thoughtful, and positively awesome. Learn more at vettedpethealth.com or download their app today. Your pet will thank you.
Welcome back to Workplace Weirdness. I'm here with Omer Golan, serial tech entrepreneur and the founder of MyWhatIf, a platform that empowers those living with trauma to heal and thrive. And we are answering the first of our listener questions today. Are you ready, Omer?
I am.
Okay, let's start with a classic case of being human in the office. Dear Workplace Weirdness, I was so stressed by a project I was on where the lead creative kept disappearing to Vegas that when my department head asked me what was wrong, I said the project will be okay, but I was not convincing. My boss just kept asking questions, plus that lead creative, who apparently everyone loves, had been such a jerk that I actually lost it and began weeping in my boss's office. Then the CEO walked by, saw us, and she came in to watch me blub too. The project ended up okay, but now I'm the guy who cries under stress. Is there any way I can overcome this reputation? What should I have done? So, Omer, I'll take it to you first. What do you think this person should have done?
We talked about vulnerability earlier. I think own up. It's not. I don't think they've done anything wrong. I think that they were left alone to deal with a very stressful situation. They need to maybe highlight that to their boss, to the people that that saw them in that situation. I say, I'm sorry, I'm stressed out. I'm right here to take care of everything, but I'm here alone. The person who's in charge have left, and I'm not saying throwing your colleague under the bus, but I am saying explain the situation that you're dealing with.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, this person is under an extremely stressful situation, which they've obviously been sweeping under the carpet repeatedly, like, oh, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be fine, until finally, one day they're asked if it's going to be okay. And then the truth comes out. They overflow with emotion and stress.
I actually think it's incredible that they care so much, right? Because if he didn't care, then yeah, it's got to be okay or it's not. I'm still gonna go. I'm still gonna get paid either way. But I think he cried. He expressed all these emotions because he cared, because he was, he felt connected to what he was doing. So I find this not something embarrassing. I think, like, at least from the boss perspective, I think that's something very endearing, and I would super appreciate someone that care about their job that much, that feel the stress and don't feel, it's 5 o'clock. Project, no project. I'm clocking out, and that's it.
Exactly. And you know what? I was just going to say that as a boss, having the CEO walk by, this person writes, she came in to watch me blub too, but she came in because she cares about your well-being as an employee. At the end of the day, that's what bosses, they want you to be able to, not just complete your task at hand, but to be able to come back to work the next day and function. So when you're going through a stressful moment, the reason the boss came in is not just to, make fun of you and laugh at you later on. Exactly the opposite. She wants to make sure you're okay. And if I was that boss, I'd probably say, you know what? Take the rest of the day off. We'll talk about this tomorrow. It's not as bad as this person thinks. Now, as far as having a reputation in the office, I would just own it. I want to say there's nothing you can do about it. What you did is what you did. I don't see anything wrong with sometimes having a bit of a breakdown, and just keep doing good work and showing that you care the way that you do. And by the next project that comes around, nobody will remember it.
Yeah. The worst thing you could say, you also cry in movies.
Exactly. Right? I'm a crier.
It's okay to be emotional. Own up to your emotion. You're a person. You're human. In such a stressful age, it's can't really not be human.
Exactly. I hope that listener can now take a deep breath and move forward with their next big project. That's where we're at. So now let's move on to our next listener question. The next question is your basic nightmare, a revolving door of ever-changing bosses. So it goes like this. Maya, I'm tired of all the bullshit at work, but cannot find something else better paying. I work as an account manager in a startup where my job is to sell software. I'm fairly good at my job and make good money, base plus commission. I have been at the company for 2 years, and we are already on our third director of sales since I've been there. I basically have a new boss every 6 months, and every time the new boss comes in, they do a completely new structure, sometimes for the better and sometimes undoing the good work of the previous boss. It's like I have worked at 3 different companies. The worst thing is that every one of them felt the need to change the pay structure, specifically the commission structure. The pay as a salesperson is already unstable and changes every few months. And every new boss feels the need to change everything else about the way we work. It's awful. I have definitely tried to find new jobs, but this job is paying 1.5 times what other jobs are offering me. What do I do? Am I suffering from the startup syndrome? So, Omer, I'm handing it off to you first.
It does show a really bad corporate culture. And I would probably, depends on the company, I would bring it to the CEO and express my it's if it's a startup, it's probably a person in the office next to you. I would bring that at some point and say, you know what, it's very frustrating. I like my work, I enjoy this place, but it's really frustrating. And I would try to see how they respond. I don't think there's a it's not like they like their work. They want to stay there, right?
Yeah, it's funny because this person on one hand is complaining, on the other hand is saying that they're paying 1.5 times more what other jobs are offering. So if they're there for the job, for the money, then I guess that's good. And I know that the compensation structure keeps changing, but such is the way with sales jobs, unfortunately, is that you usually get a commission for, what you bring in.
And startups change very often. They need to be very quick and adapt and evolve. But it seems like so many different managers change very often. There's something wrong with the culture, right? And there need to be something stable for the employee to feel at home and to feel respected and cared for. There's a lot of things that can be changed, but there's had to be something constant that gives you continuity in your work and not feeling so unstable that you're worried someone's going to pull the rug under your feet at any minute just on a whim.
It's true. And we don't know if it's a startup or not, but they did ask if it was the startup syndrome. And depending on which industry it is, it could be that I agree that possibly why the bosses keep changing is because somehow the sales division is not doing well. Like they keep trying to pivot, which of course is difficult on employees, but it probably does mean that the business is just not meeting the goals that it needs to meet. So, this person has choices. If the job's paying well, remember you're learning valuable lessons from being within that job. And essentially, it's a little bit funny maybe to say, but if you've had 3 different bosses, you've actually had the experience of now 3 different jobs within the same role.
And you outlasted all 3.
Exactly. Consider being the boss. Maybe I'm saying that a little bit like as a joke, but maybe that's the truth too. I mean, if it is a startup, by the way, I want to say from my experience having worked in startups that it's not so much about, what your hierarchical level is, but if you can be helpful to the team, you can actually rise quite quickly within that kind of an environment. Um, but if it's not right for you, which is understandable, then it's maybe time to just find another industry or another job that's better suited for you and for your personality.
Absolutely. And if you're a very good software salesperson, just write me. We can find something.
I love it, love it, love it. Okay, well, thank you again, Omil. I hope that this listener will find a way to ride the waves of change and will be able to figure out what they do next. And I love that you offered that. So hopefully we'll hear from them. Okay, our last listener question is what we call our sort of more cringeworthy workplace weirdness. And every week we cover one question addressing the kind of cringeworthy slip up that can make you pull the quilt over your head when the alarm goes off. So here it is. Dear Workplace Weirdness, someone on our team uses these regional expressions and is really protective about where they come from culturally, and so is the whole company. We can't really talk about anyone's differences. I can Google some expressions, but sometimes I don't even know how to spell what I'm hearing. I went for a week thinking an expression meant that a thing was good, but it really meant that it was bad. How can I handle this gracefully? So I don't know about you, but yeah, I've been there. But I wanna hear if you've ever had an experience with something similar.
Oh my gosh. I mean, all my team were multicultural. I find it sounds very odd that they can talk about the origins of their culture and what they're saying. That's very strange. But I came to the US as I think 12 years ago as an artist, and I brought my artwork to all the Chelsea galleries, and I used to lay down my portfolio. They would say, "Ooh, this is really really interesting. Come back someday. Come back another day, and we should talk about it." With that. And then I would come back a week or two after, and they would be so surprised to see me again. And I was like, "Why are you surprised? You said that it was interesting." Yeah, it took me a while to realize in American culture, interesting is don't ever come here again. This is the least interesting thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, interesting is being polite in American culture. You're right. Yeah. So it means exactly.
It's in Israel, so when we say interesting, we only say that when we're interested, right? So there could be a lot of these misunderstanding or cultural things that makes you feel like, oh, I just don't understand what's going on.
Totally. And feeling just out of the loop, in other words, like here in this case, I guess, you were an outsider coming into a different culture. So it took you a while to understand that. But imagine if you're working in an office and everybody is of a different culture, or not everybody, but there's certain groups that are of different cultures that have inside words. You can feel very left out.
I have so many of my teams who don't speak Hebrew, and then other people do. And in the conversation, you realize that we use so many words in Hebrew while we kind of engage and talk about things, and we don't even realize. And then you can see someone raising their hand, like, I don't know what the hell you were saying in the last 3 minutes, dude. Like, just like, can you fill me in?
Absolutely. I actually have the same experience because, of course, I worked in Israeli startups and I obviously speak Hebrew and everything as well. And sometimes you'll have the Israelis go into a room and sort of do what looks like to other people as arguing very loudly, but we're just talking very passionately instead. So, and by the end of it, we solve it and we leave the room and everybody's okay and we forget about the thing that happened. But culturally, not always understood well by people who are not part of that culture. So very interesting. I completely agree. What do you think we should advise to this person, though? How can she or he, overcome gracefully, the fact that they're not in on these expressions in their office?
I didn't understand when they wrote that they're not allowed to ask questions or they're not allowed to talk about their differences. We are different. That's what makes a good team, that it's made out of different people, right? Like, who wants a team that makes out of that built out of the same person, and that had the same skills, the same background, the same, that doesn't lead you much far, right? From, like, so I would say, ask, talk, communicate, open things, be the one that call things out and say, you know what, I'm sure you're all having a laugh, I just don't understand the joke, can someone explain? Maybe find a better way to put it, but just communicate openly. I think if you bring this as a culture, you'll be surprised how people respond to you.
And there may be other people in your office who are feeling the same thing and are also scared to speak up. Why, I don't know. But most people don't actually want to be exclusionary in their talk. They're not trying to do that. If they are, that's a different cultural problem. But assuming they have good intent, like just ask, and hopefully they will include you, and then you can be part of the in crowd that gets the joke.
Yeah. And if they don't, and if they disagree, just write us back and we'll figure this out from there.
Yeah. Also, another way to go about it, if this person is really kind of, more anxious about bringing it up publicly, is to pull aside a friend who understands. In other words, somebody who is maybe of that culture, and say, I didn't feel as comfortable asking in the meeting, but could you tell me what it means when they say XYZ?
I wish they had written like a specific example where it comes up.
I've heard of people sometimes even utilizing, for lack of a better way of saying it, but like bro speak, like using like dude, or like words like that can also sometimes turn people off and make them feel a little bit excluded. And so I think it's our job, though, that if we feel like the words that people are using or the terms that are using that are not helping us or not comfortable for us, that we in some way express it. Otherwise, we're not doing anybody any benefit by just sort of pretending.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yourself.
Exactly. So I hope that this person figures it out and can get themselves out of this confusion. First of all, I just want to say thank you, Omer, for your time. And I think that you gave some really great feedback. So I want to just thank you.
It's been great.
And everyone, that's our show. Thank you so much for joining us to discuss the benefits and complications of the AI revolution. It's been a privilege for us to hear your experience, Omer. So thank you for sharing and being vulnerable with our listeners. And we'll be back soon with more Workplace Weirdness. If you've enjoyed our dive into the strange and funny side of office life, don't forget to subscribe. And if you've got some weirdness in the workplace, drop us an email at info@workplace-weirdness.com or leave us a voice message at speakpipe.com/workplace weirdness. We might feature your question in an upcoming episode. Until next time, this is Maya Kadar Kovalsky reminding you to embrace the quirks and make the most out of the office chaos. In the meantime, keep working, and whenever possible, stay weird. Today's show is produced by me, Maya Kadar Kovalsky, and Felicia Wang, and written by Dana Burnell. Thanks to Billy Salibi and the rest of the team at Podify who helped ideate and engineer this episode. Thanks also to Omer Golan for joining us on today's episode.